Michael Myers was a horror icon the moment he stepped on screen in 1978's Halloween, an unknowable figure of death that struck fear into the hearts of Haddonfield and viewers around the world. In the aftermath, the slasher subgenre began to dominate big screens, and the Halloween franchise, at first groundbreaking with its vision of pure evil invading the quiet suburbs, was forced to compete with a ruthless new generation of killers through escalating, increasingly convoluted sequels. As of right now, the Halloween franchise is about to premiere its 12th movie, with a 13th on the way to close out its newest trilogy, but there are so many more that could have come to the big screen. Like countless other successful horror franchises, and just like we've seen with Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Alien, the history of the Halloween franchise could have been completely different if so many potential sequels were ever filmed. From small changes to vastly different paths, the story of Michael Myers has been reshaped again and again on screen. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. So let's take a trip through the history of the many unmade Halloween sequels. As I've discussed in my videos on Halloween and Halloween 2, when writer and director John Carpenter and writer and producer Deborah Hill created the story of Michael Myers for producer Irwin Yablans and financier Mustafa Akkad, they largely gave up control of the franchise. When Carpenter and Hill returned to create Part 2, the sequel was originally designed to take place in a high-rise years after the original and in a new town. Now Laurie would be wiser and more cautious after the night he came home. Hill later revealed they were also toying with shooting in 3D. Not many other details are known, but the film became the one we know during the scripting phase. After Carpenter killed Myers and Dr. Loomis in Halloween 2, the director pursued the idea of Halloween being an anthology. The result is Season of the Witch. But the script was originally a collaboration with celebrated British science fiction writer Nigel Kneale. Carpenter was an enormous fan of Kneale and wanted to collaborate with one of his heroes. Kneale, on the other hand, hated Halloween and seemed to loathe Carpenter. During the scripting phase, Kneale was given massive creative freedom and only instructed to bring witchcraft into the computer age. But when Carpenter and Hill had notes for a second draft, Kneale was outraged. Cue Carpenter performing an uncredited rewrite, director Tommy Lee Wallace doing his own rewrite, and Kneale demanding his name be removed from the script. As the only non-Myers film of the franchise, its underperformance at the box office would lead to... In 1982, Irwin Yablans told The Hollywood Reporter, Halloween 4 will get made somehow, somewhere, and in the not-too-distant future. That was news to Carpenter and Hill, who refused to do another sequel for 4 years. In 1986, the pair returned, with Carpenter agreeing to only oversee a screenplay written by someone else. That was author Dennis Etchison, who wrote the novelizations of Halloween 2 and 3. The immediate mandate was to bring Michael Myers back. Etchison's Halloween 4 is set 10 years after the original, and Haddonfield has banned everything to do with the holiday. But the shape supernaturally returns from an outlawed pumpkin patch just outside of town. An older Tommy Doyle and Lindsay Wallace star as Laurie has left town and Loomis is dead here, which, I mean, yeah, he blew up. As Haddonfield residents begin celebrating Halloween, the shape goes on a killing spree, which includes slaughtering hundreds at a drive-in movie. With Michael found to be a dark god, his supernatural powers make him able to regenerate as he feeds off the town's fear. The finale sees the police unleash a hail of bullets on Michael, which makes him grow to 12 feet tall. An explosion causes him to disappear, but the fear of the boogeyman remains. Etchison's script was rejected by Yablans and Akkad because they disliked the supernatural element, causing Carpenter and Hill to sell their interest in the franchise to Akkad and permanently end their involvement. Post-Etchison, Akkad was flooded with Halloween 4 pitches. Among these were a draft by Daniel Kenney and Mark Allen Medina that has Michael and Loomis survive Part 2. 10 years later, the shape stalks Laurie and her family in Chicago. The climax sees Laurie push Michael into an electrified pool, where he bursts into flames and then explodes into chunks. Another focused on Laurie's daughter being stalked by the shape and ended with the young girl attacking a relative. Sound familiar? Shem Bitterman's draft bears a huge similarity to the final Halloween 4, with with the comatose Michael learning about his niece as the only surviving relative, here called Amanda Hatch. The major difference is that Amanda is obsessed with Michael and thinks he could be nice. He isn't, of course, and while he's shot at the end, Michael still lives. Rewrites would create the final Return of Michael Myers, a more back-to-basics approach that kicked off the new wave of Halloween movies in 1988. Halloween 4 was a big hit, so of course it was full steam ahead on a sequel. While Halloween 5 would debut only 1 year later, there were several ideas floated for the extremely rushed follow-up. When most of 4's creative team declined to return, Bitterman was invited back, and then he wrote the script in 3 days. But what's critical is that even though the end of 4 set up young Jamie to be the new incarnation of the Shape, Akkad immediately forbade it. Bitterman's draft, subtitled The Killer Inside Me, picks up immediately after 4 and brings back Michael as the big evil, but also casts Jamie as violent, dangerous, and psychically creating evil versions of herself. Soon, Michael begins psychically multiplying himself too. I don't know, there was some psychic stuff in 4, we're just doing whatever now. Kills Loomis, is killed by the psychic Jamie, who unmasks Michael to reveal he has a little boy face, and Jamie seemingly begins her own killing spree. It was eventually rewritten and retitled Halloween 5 and Things That Go Bump in the Night. Wow. Real bad title. While the script was used to sign director Dominique Othenin-Girard to the project, he immediately rejected it once on board. Othenin-Girard pitched a new vision with writer Robert Harders, a Frankenstein-like approach that saw the Shape brought back to life when struck by lightning, with no memory and no violent impulses. Now a tragic figure hunted by Haddonfield and, in a fun reversal, protected by Loomis, Harders wanted to make the Shape more akin to classic Universal monsters. There was just one problem. That wasn't what Akkad wanted done with the slasher icon he had just successfully revived. Plus, Friday the 13th had already done the lightning thing with Jason. Harders' pitch was immediately rejected, and Othenin-Girard and Michael Jacobs rewrote Bitterman's draft to become Halloween 5. 5 is basically 4, but bad and sloppy. Still, there was worse to come. There were many different directions that 6 could have gone in. One was Phil Rosenberg's Halloween 666 in 1994. You can already tell from the title that this is gonna be bad. Michael is homeless, very zombie Halloween 2, and the now adult Tommy Doyle becomes the Loomis figure, teaming up with yet another secret younger sister of Michael's. But wait, somehow Tommy is able to use virtual reality to witness the original curse of the Myers family at a festival of Samhain in some weird-ass Lawnmower Man shit. Now, Michael's sister Judith's grave acts as a portal to the underworld every Halloween, which they shove Michael into. Apparently, upon reading the draft, Mustafa Akkad threw the script across the room. It was later heavily rewritten as Halloween 666, The Origin of Michael Myers, with the VR and Hell portal still intact. It never went anywhere. Oh, quick note, it was during this time period that John Carpenter pitched sending Michael Myers into space. Take that, Jason X. After Akkad and the Weinsteins, who were producing the new film under Miramax, rejected Rosenberg's draft, they set their sights on a new voice in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino. Tarantino was a self-confessed Halloween fan but declined the offer. He did, however, briefly consider Michael and the Man in Black, everyone's favorite side character, taking a road trip and killing people everywhere they stopped. Natural-born killer style. Foot fetishes too, probably. All this back and forth meant that development of Halloween 6 took 5 years. Doesn't mean that movie is any good though. If you're a Halloween fan, you know that 6 is a mess, and the real-life passing of Donald Pleasance meant that Loomis was gone from the franchise. But Miramax and Akkad still tried to make a 7th happen. Cue Daniel Farran's Michael Myers, Lord of the Dead, which triples down on 6's occult conspiracy by having the entire town of Haddonfield be in the Cult of Thorn, and Tommy on the run trying to clear his name after being framed for Michael's killings. The idea was quickly scrapped because of how tight it was to the disastrous 6. In the meantime, Dimension Films and parent Miramax briefly decided that future Halloweens would now be direct-to-video. The same hell that entrapped the increasingly terrible Hellraiser and Children of the Corn franchises. Now a low-budget DTV franchise, Dimension asked Robert Zappia to write a fresh start, free from ongoing mythology. It would be Halloween 7: Two Faces of Evil. It's a sort of murder mystery as detectives investigate whether Michael Myers is behind a new string of murders in Nauvoo, Illinois, or if a new copycat killer is on the loose. The answer is, it's both. Michael is killing off teens, but so is the unfortunately named Cain Gabriel, a criminal turned magician turned serial killer. While the script had been positively received by executives, Jamie Lee Curtis had agreed to return to the franchise, saving it from DTV hell but also jettisoning Zappia's script. With Curtis back on board, there were several ideas for a 20th anniversary sequel. First, Curtis had planned to return with Carpenter and Hill, but Carpenter's demand for a high paycheck as director was denied, leading to the pair leaving. Next, Zappia of Two Faces wrote a Part 7 with Laurie as the star. His script, titled Blood Ties, is set at a school where Laurie is now teaching and ends with Michael being chopped up by a helicopter. At the same time, Kevin Williamson of Scream provided a short treatment that kept the Thorn trilogy intact, with Laurie faking the car accident death referenced in 4 to live a new life. This would expand into a full script by Zappia titled The Revenge of Laurie Strode, and was used to put the clumsily named Halloween H2O 20 years later into production. But Williamson came back for a page 1 rewrite as filming began, eliminating a concurrent detective storyline and any references to the Thorn trilogy. As a result, H2O is like 65 minutes long. The box office success of H2O was quickly counteracted by the failure of the absolutely dismal Resurrection. But Dimension needed profits from another Halloween. Who was left to star with so many characters dead? Why, Busta Rhymes, of course.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
Tim Day submitted Halloween H25 in 2002. 1 year after Resurrection, a documentary is being made about Myers by Rhymes's Freddie Harris. Soon, Myers escapes from the underground lab he's been trapped in and attacks the theater screening the doc, with many surviving characters from the entire series in attendance, including John Carpenter himself, only for Busta to once again beat his ass. But this never made it past the treatment stage. After H25, several different ideas were developed under the title Halloween Retribution. Joe Harris would bring back Rhymes as well as LL Cool J's Ronnie from H2O for a rapper team-up against The Shape. Another possibility was the return of Sheriff Brackett to avenge the death of his daughter Annie in the original Halloween. Another has Freddie Harris immediately killed by Michael, with several other franchise characters returning, including Laurie's son from H2O, for revenge. None of these move forward. In my videos on Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, I discussed the many potential Freddy vs. Jason movies thrown away during the 90s. But the demand for an iconic monster meet and greet almost led to a mashup of Halloween and Hellraiser. 1998's Halloween by Dave Parker has young Michael possessed by a demon from a puzzle box, which transforms him into the shape we know. In present day, the box is rediscovered, leading to a brawl in hell between Michael and the Cenobites. 2002's Halloween in Hell, Michael vs. Pinhead by Josh Stolberg and Bobby Florsheim has Michael crash a support group of horror film survivors in pursuit of Jamie Lloyd, only to kill Hellraiser's Kirsty Cotton. The Cenobites want revenge on Michael for killing their target. Jamie's blood is accidentally transfused into 7 other people, and the now accidental bloodline group must survive the war between Michael and Pinhead, with the winner changing depending on which ending was randomly given to theaters. In 2002, John Carpenter and Clive Barker were almost lured back to the franchise as they started, but Akkad decided that Halloween was better than Hellraiser and didn't want to touch the Pinhead franchise. With his controlling stake in Halloween, the project was killed and never attempted again. Dimension briefly considered making back-to-back Halloween sequels and asked John Sullivan to pitch them his idea. The only mandate was to exist in the H2O timeline and be cheap. Part 1 was Halloween Haddonfield. It stars Jason Loomis, son of the late crazy psychiatrist. And in a sharp contrast to other cancelled ideas, the town is holding a Halloween festival celebrating their iconic killer. Cue Michael's return, who is able to blend in and stalk the teenage girl who plays his sister in an extremely distasteful recreation of Michael's first ever kill, and ends with the Shape defeated in a burning gymnasium. The second, Asylum, has Jason Loomis become the head of Smith's Grove, only for a lightning strike to release all the inmates, including one man who believes himself to be Myers. So this would be a fake Michael film, with the real Myers showing up at the very end to kill his imposter. It's very Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, and Clearly, nobody liked that. A script by Matt Veen, also titled Asylum, mashes up Retribution and Sullivan's Asylum, as Myers kills Busta Rhymes, is caught, and sentenced to death, only to escape and wreak havoc. It was around this time that the Weinsteins and Dimensions split from Disney, with Asylum caught in the crossfire and the future of Halloween up in the air. After the split during the prequel-crazy early 2000s, it was time for a prequel. Enter Jake Wade Wall's Halloween: The Missing Years, detailing those 15 years that young Michael was locked up in Smith's Grove. Yes, it's a movie about the time when nothing happened. But that's not all. The second act would jump to the end of Halloween 2 to show what extra crispy Michael did next. Again, nothing. But everything came to a halt with the tragic death of Mustafa Akkad in 2005 in a terrorist attack in Jordan. The man who had shepherded the entire franchise was suddenly gone, and in his place was his son Malek. The prequel craze would soon become the remake craze, with Rob Zombie coming on board for his 2007 film, originally designed as 2 movies, one about young Michael and one a more traditional remake, and his even more batshit 2009 sequel. While Zombies Halloween 2 definitely doesn't set itself up for another, with Michael dead and Laurie insane at the end of the theatrical cut and both dead at the end of the director's cut, money is money. The thing is, Zombie was done with the franchise, and the Weinsteins had been planning part 3 behind his back with Todd Farmer and Patrick Lussier. The 3D movie would pick up from the theatrical ending, with Laurie and Michael, still alive, working together to kill cops and dig up their mother's grave. 1 year later, an institutionalized Laurie and a still on the loose Michael rampage again. Eventually, the hero cop of the movie is blown up when a bomb is shoved in his stomach. The unstable Laurie is mercy killed by Michael, and the shape disappears into the night. Grim stuff. The Weinstein Company was in serious financial trouble at the time, so despite trying to make the film super fast, the money dried up too quickly to shoot. A second version was written by Steph Hitchinson, but also wasn't made due to lack of money. This time, it's 3 years later, with Loomis and Laurie dead, Michael on the loose, and the grieving Sheriff Brackett wanting revenge. What seems like a feel-good ending is turned upside down when Brackett realizes that Myers has kidnapped his innocent young niece. The movie closes with Myers burning her to death in a field. What the fuck? All these bad Dimension pitches are making me sweat, so let's do a speed round. Halloween 3.0 by a returning Farmer and Lussier acts as a replacement sequel to the Carpenter original, with an entire SWAT team descending on the Shape, only for Michael to escape and stalk Laurie. Loomis is alive, and Laurie blows up Michael in an ambulance. Michael Bay's Platinum Dunes pitched a reboot that had Michael abducted as a young boy. The Shape, who returns a decade later, is actually 2 different people on a simultaneous spree. Steph Hutchison proposed a new reboot trilogy that stars Loomis. Part 1 remakes Carpenter's original with a demonic psychic bent, Laurie dead and Loomis shot by Brackett. Part 2 has Loomis's young son kidnapped and killed by the Shape, which turns the broken doctor into a killer. And Part 3 has an entire army of Shapes escape the sanitarium for a massive killing spree. Soon we see that this is a multiverse story, with the original, Halloween 4, and Zombie Halloween all existing in their own dimensions. At the end, Loomis kills himself to end the Shape, who he is psychically connected to, as well as the hundreds of duplicates. All of these failed post-zombie pitches led to 2015's Halloween Returns, written by Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan for Dimension Films in 2015. Returns removes Halloween 2 from canon. Michael is quickly caught after the original, but 10 years later, the Shape survives his execution and escapes. Now, the deputy and doctor that captured him on Halloween must protect their children from the Shape's revenge, which, of course, doesn't work out well. Michael escapes once again, and Loomis returns in the film's post-credit scene. Returns creates a fresh start by making Laurie a footnote in its plot, so it's both an alternate Halloween 2 and an alternate Halloween 4. The film was announced and placed into pre-production in 2015, but delayed several times. Then, on December 8th, 2015, Dimension Films lost the rights to Halloween after 20 years due to surpassing the 5-year limit between sequels needed to keep the rights, reverting them to the now Weinstein-less Miramax. Halloween Returns was officially dead, and in its place was the Blumhouse Blumhouse co-produced Halloween 2018, which involved Malek Akkad, John Carpenter, Danny McBride, David Gordon Green, and Jamie Lee Curtis. After decades of stop-and-start production on sequels that went absolutely nowhere, it was a massive change of pace for the franchise. Green's reboot made $255 million worldwide, which is more than what the previous 9 movies made combined. And as of this video's release, Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends are on their way to create a brand new trilogy. Unlike so many of the Unmade movies I've covered for Friday, Nightmare, and Alien, the Halloween films seem permanently bound to a few key characters. There's of course Michael, but Laurie, Loomis, and surprisingly Sheriff Brackett are never far from the minds of potential creators. The result is a franchise that can never fully break away from John Carpenter and Deborah Hill's original vision, even after reboots, remakes, and branching timelines. As a consequence, so many of these sequel ideas begin to blend together as the proposals that don't feature the iconic characters become rarer and rarer. Now, with Curtis back for a final confrontation with the Shape, it seems like the minds behind Halloween are determined to put Michael Myers to rest. Of course, with any long-running horror franchise, a good slasher icon is never gone for long. The question is not only how the Shape can be destroyed, but how long will it be until evil incarnate inevitably returns? Thanks for watching today's video and welcome to Halloween season. I hope you like horror because like every year, I'm going all out until Halloween. And I thought that the best way to kick off the season would be, as usual, to start with an Unmade sequels video. I've done Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Alien, and now Halloween. So I think I've covered a lot of the giant franchises, but there's still a lot of other possibilities out there. And really, I just find the topic to be fascinating. It's an alternate history that could go in so many different ways. Sometimes they're for movies that I really wish had been made, but a lot of them seem like we dodged a bullet. I'd love to hear in the comments below what movies you wish had been made. Personally, I kinda would really like to see Etchison's Supernatural Halloween 4, if only to see Michael jumping out of a giant pumpkin patch back to life, and to see him grow to 12 feet tall for whatever reason. It just seems kind of bonkers in a cool way. As always, a big thank you to my patrons for their continued support. If you'd like to be a patron, it's only $1 a month for early access to every video and exclusive reviews. And throughout the month of October, I will be putting out lots and lots of those exclusive reviews, including hopefully an audio commentary and lots of shorter reviews of great horror movies that I'm not covering in videos this month. So if you're into horror, there's plenty to find there, but there'll be lots and lots on the channel as well. Until the next time, I hope that you're taking care of yourselves, looking out for one another, and watching some great horror movies. See you again soon.